number of years ago, I heard it said that sleep is the best form of prayer. It's a complete surrender to God. And in a sense, when we fall asleep, there's a dying, and then when we wake up, there's a rising. So in our falling asleep and our waking up, we share in the death and resurrection of Christ. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, my prayer life is a disaster right now. My prayer life is not very good. I need to sleep more. But the reality is each of us will sleep a certain amount of time and then you wake up. And you can lay there, you can roll around, but sometimes it's just best to get up. We recognize though that our activities during the day influences our sleep. And even what we eat during the day affects our sleep. And so we have to be attentive to what we're doing during the day if we want to have a good night's sleep. In our gospel reading, the disciples have returned from mission. Actually, they're called apostles because they were sent out. Jesus called them, and then he invited them to follow him. That is to say, follow his teachings, follow the way he lives his life, and then they are to be sent out to share that with others. And it's the same for us. We are called to the waters of baptisms. We follow the pattern of Jesus Christ, and then we are sent out into our households, into our communities, into our church to do our part. We all have to do our part in our world. And sometimes, when you read about something that's not going so well in our world, maybe it's just good for us to do something to counteract whatever that is. Now, the disciples, obviously, as I mentioned, need time to sleep. And Jesus can see that. Jesus knows that. And so even in our own lives, there's times where we know we need prayer. You need to go to prayer. But at a certain point, you have to, okay, it's time to get moving. And sometimes the clock will tell us that, but sometimes even our own hearts will let us know that it's time to get moving. Now, when they're being bombarded by the crowds, Jesus doesn't get disturbed by this. He doesn't tell them to go away. He has compassion. The one thing that always remains consistent with Jesus is he has compassion, especially those people who are in need, those people who are like sheep without a shepherd. And notice the one thing that Jesus does in the gospel reading is he teaches them. Sometimes when we learn something very good about our faith or anything else, that can also nourish us, and that's also important in our lives. In our first reading from the book of the prophet Jeremiah, the people have not had good shepherds. But God promises, God's a little bit rocky at this point, but God promises to send good leaders. And then also God promises to send the righteous branch, which is Jesus Christ. Now this is 600 years before Jesus is born among us. But what peace that brings that God chose to become human. Hopefully that helps us to sleep well at night. The fact that God chose to become human. That is to say, really, that it's good to be human. Despite all the failings of humanity, despite all the different things we do wrong, all the sufferings that we go through, it is good to be human, and we ought to give thanks for that. Our lives, one of the things we're challenged to do is to be united and at peace with others. Now, I'm not saying that this is easy, but if you want to sleep well at night, then do your best to be at peace with others, to be united with others. And so once again, as we unite ourselves with our God, we take some time to rest with our God so that we can be nourished, we can be strengthened to carry out the activities that God calls us to as we follow our brother, Jesus Christ.